this evening. It's one of the biggest breakthroughs in unmanned aerial vehicle technology. The high altitude Pseudo-Satellite. It's a UAV which is solar powered. It flies over 20 kilometers above the earth and it can stay airborne for weeks on end. Now the IAF wants this technology and several Indian firms are engaged in a race to acquire this HAPS technology. In fact, one of them has already signed a joint venture with a foreign company to bring these HAPS platforms into India. And joining me in the studio to discuss this are UAE expert Group Captain Narang and my colleague Nivriti Mohan. Over to you first, Nivriti. Since you've broken the story, tell us what we are seeing right now. What is this platform and what's the significance of this visual that we are seeing on this background?
First of all, this is the visual that we have acquired from Veda Aerospace, who has signed a partnership, entered into a partnership with a UAE-based company. So this is HAPS, High Altitude Pseudo-Satellite.
Right.
It is like a bridge between a drone and a satellite.
Right. So it comes in the space between a satellite and a drone.
Drone, yes.
And
because
this
drone
is
cannot
the curvature of the earth almost. It's flying at about 20 kilometers?
Yes, it is at an altitude of 20 kilometers. This is the altitude where a drone cannot fly.
Right.
And satellites are above this altitude.
Yes.
And it is, if we consider the importance of this vehicle, we can say that it is as important as a satellite and as promising as a satellite because of the altitude that it achieves.
Right.
And it has a surveillance capacity as good as a satellite. And most importantly, it doesn't cost us much as a satellite costs because it needs a launcher.
Right.
Through a rocket it is launched into the space,
yes.
but we don't need a launcher for this.
Right.
And it is low cost as far as if we compare it with the satellite.
Yes.
And it covers the space which is between a drone and a satellite.
And you know, I want to bring in Group Captain Narang on this, sir, because you're a UAV expert. We've been speaking a lot about this. You know, tell us about the importance of this technology that we are seeing. Why is everyone, every country in the world literally chasing high altitude pseudo-satellites?
See, you understand that satellites normally operate at 200 kilometers and above.
Right.
Now, if you have to send a satellite to the space, it requires a lot of funding, a lot of technology effort is required.
Right.
And they are operating at very high speed.
Yes.
So their coverage of that area is for a very short duration.
Right.
And then if you are operating a UAV, let's say male or hail UAV, it is operating in weather. So it is always impacted by weather, whether it can take off or not take off.
Right.
But these kind of platforms will fly above the where the weather will exist.
So this is, he's flying above the weather.
Weather will remain below that.
You can actually see the cloud, that's correct.
Correct. Yes. So it is well above it. If you compare it with the civil airline, it is double the height of civil airline.
Right.
So when you look at those altitudes, there is no weather.
Once
you have climbed beyond a weather, you will be able to remain airborne.
So I remember a few years back, the IAF had a very radical aircraft, very exclusive aircraft called the MiG-25 Foxbat R.
Yes.
And that was a stratosphere skimmer, as they called it.
Yes.
Would it be correct to say that this could actually replace the MiG-25, as in it would be ground launched and retrieved very quickly? And does that fill the gap?
No, you can't say it fills the gap, but it provides a capability.
Right.
See, the MiG-25 could fly at a very high speed.
Right.
So, you know, it could fly at almost 3 times the speed of sound if required.
Right.
So, it could give you fast particular area capability.
Right.
But this will give you persistent capability for days and weeks. If you have an area of interest like Galwan conflict, you could keep it airborne for days and weeks.
For days, that's
and you will not be bothered, you know, whether you have a surveillance system in airborne or not.
Right.
The second area is Indian Ocean region. If you look at Indian Ocean, it's a huge area.
Yes.
So you cannot keep manned aircraft airborne for long period.
Absolutely.
And if you have a bad weather, they cannot get airborne.
Right.
Now this machine will remain airborne and when required can come into action.
Right. And he's solar powered and it's got solar cells on its wings. And that's what powers the...
Yes. The challenge when you send these machines to those altitudes, the challenge is they have a limited payload carrying
Yes.
capability. They are at slow speed. They have a huge wingspans.
Right.
But that's the, you have to do the compromise to meet your operational requirement.
Right.
So it's an asset which all over the world people are trying to exploit. It is an area or a technology
Right.
which was not possible in the past, but it has become possible.
Right.
And India is not behind it. Remember, Indian Air Force launched the iDEX competition
Yes.
under Open Challenge 1.
Right.
Now, this is a departure from past practices of Air Force, where they were used to acquisition of technology.
Right.
Here they allowed or invited the industry to come up with innovative solutions.
Right.
So one of the Indian company, New Space Research and Technologies
Yes.
Private Limited, a Bangalore-based company, they
Right.
came up with this project. We can develop this technology.
Right.
And Indian Air Force mentored them under Open Challenge 1.
Yes.
And they recently demonstrated operations up to 20 hours plus.
Right.
But this was done at a low altitude. Remember, technology is a spiral development
Yes.
process.
Yes.
So we had demonstrated the capability that we can develop a platform which can remain airborne based on solar power, remain at a certain height. The
Right.
next phase is taking it to the stratosphere level, because the
Right.
trials were conducted in the airspace,
Right. Within the atmosphere.
Within the atmosphere.
Yes.
The next phase is stratosphere.
take it to
and
the-
here I will
yes.
compliment the Indian Navy.
Yes.
Once this prototype has been proven, Indian Navy has accepted the challenge
Yes.
in the Open Challenge 9. In fact,
Right.
it was done this month itself.
Right.
And now New Space Research Technology will not only develop it,
Yes.
will supply them an operational platform for further induction.
Right.
And I think one aspect we need to understand is the QRs are not rigid.
Yes.
They are willing to work with the developers to meet the requirements which Indian Navy will need in the
Right.
times to come.
Right.
And I think that's an opportunity for Indian industry to come up.
Right.
Here, if you allow me to tell me, a public sector entity, NAL is also
Yes, they're also in this
demonstrated a
race. Absolutely.
8.5 hours demonstration, flying demonstration.
With CSIR.
With CSIR.
Yes.
CSIR lab, it's one of the
Right.
CSIR
But
lab.
you know, Nimriti, I want to bring you in on this point because you've been covering drone development, and that series that you brought out on the IAF's drone challenge, the Mehar Baba Swarm Drone Contest.
Yes.
Is this a byproduct of that contest where a whole lot of private sector champions were, funded and encouraged, whether it's Veda or it's New Space, all of them came out of this contest?
Yes, you won't be surprised. You are also saying this, that both the companies who are working on HAPS right
Yes.
now, they are the product of Mehar Baba Swarm Drone
Yes.
Contest, and they participated in the contest, and they bagged the contracts also
Right.
for the swarm drones.
Yes.
Now, one thing that comes into my mind, that because IAF
So when I look at civil drone sector, I think Indian government really brought a transformational policy in 2021, when they really changed the April 2021 policy, US policy, to a drone policy, which was industry friendly. But to talk about civil military fusion, if we compare it with the US and EASA, I think we still need to have a Atmanirbharta policy in the civil industry. Secondly, we need a R&D programs to integrate these civil drones in the Indian airspace. We also need a program of such R&D initiatives where enabling technologies, if you understand, if you recollect, lot of our components are being imported. If you have to make those components indigenously, somebody has to do the hand holding, the way we have a positive indigenization list in the military.
Right.
If we have a policy where it is followed by all the ministries,
Right, right.
in the you talk of agriculture, you talk of Swamitwa scheme, you talk of medical.
Yeah.
If we adopt these policies, we can really achieve. So the short answer is not yet, but I think it's an opportunity. We need to look at it. We need to look at a reforms
Right.
where we have a national civil drone Atmanirbharta policy,
Yes.
R&D initiatives to integrate these drones.
And
in the
civil
Indian
military
airspace.
fusion as well.
Civil
But,
military fusion is needed.
Group Captain Narang, we were speaking earlier about how the Indian armed forces were actually behind the UAV race in a sense that, countries like Iran, which made a lot of investments, early investments, are now reaping the rewards of that. China is, of course, a drone superpower, and so is Turkey. Do you think that with HAPS, we get a chance to be level with the rest of the world? Because we are kind of, at the frontier
Early
of this
beginners.
technology. We are, literally every country in the world is trying to achieve the kind of, the performance that this HAPS has demonstrated. Do you think we have a chance now with HAPS to catch up with the rest of the world or even lead the world?
So I'll say lead is still far away,
Right.
but there are two major programs which have really made the difference. One is the Mehar Baba competition.
Yes, of course.
When we launched, when Indian F Chief launched on 8th October 2018,
Yes.
it was a very aspirational program. Remember, after independence, we never had a program
Yes.
where we ever decided to develop a technology which was
Right.
at par with the world.
Absolutely.
Like, even if you talk of space, those technologies existed and we caught up. But swarm technology,
Yes.
even world was devolving. So I think swarm brought a change in mindset of Indian military that we can develop niche technologies.
Absolutely.
And HAPS is the carry forward of that. And
Right.
I think compliments go to both Indian Air Force and
Yes.
Indian Navy,
Right.
where they are looking at these futuristic technology, hand-holding some of the startups and MSMEs,
Right.
and then helping them in the design, development, testing, certification process.
Right.
Now, certification is still a challenge
Yes.
because most of our certification entities are used to certifying where existing standards exist.
Yes.
So, in these two technologies, they have to really work with the Indian startups
Right.
and form those standards which tomorrow will be our asset in the times to come.
Right, but full marks, Group Captain Narang, to the Indian Air Force for taking that first jump in this direction, as you mentioned, with swarm drone technology way back, 6 years back, when it was still in its very nascent form. But we have a chance now to catch up with the rest of the world and who knows, even lead with technologies like the HAPS, the high altitude pseudo-satellite.
They
Full marks to
started
you.
with just little above 10 crores.
Yes.
And now they have turned the industry into thousands
A
of
1,000
crores
crore with
industry.
potentially worth tens of thousands of crores. But thank you very much, Group Captain Narang, for joining us this evening, and my colleague Nivriti for breaking that story. One of the first rare visuals of HAPS owned by an Indian company that's out
the
there in the
stratosphere.
stratosphere. And you can download the News9 Plus app and watch Nivriti's exclusive story on the IAF's Shark Tank contest. She tells you how the Air Force invested just a few crores and created an entire swarm drone ecosystem for India, Atmanirbhar Bharat. Download and watch.